All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our Sign Association of Canada webinar. It's a fireside chat on sign permitting with our fantastic speakers, our experts, David Atkinson of 5-Star Permits from BC, Svetlana Levant in Permit World, and she's joining us here from Ontario, and Joey Matrichuk with Permit Solutions, and she's calling in from Alberta. Hello. My name is Corinne Eaton, and I'm the Executive Director of Sign Association of Canada. Before we begin, I wanted to share with all of our members some of the tools and resources that we have available for you through the association. And then wanted to also mention that we are recording this webinar, so if you would like to check it again, it will be available for you, and also for any members who are not able to join in today, then they will be able to log in afterwards through the member portal on the Sign Association of Canada website, and this is going to be available to them. So I am just trying to, because I'm doing both things here at the same time, make sure that if somebody joins us, I can admit them. All right. Hillary, if you hear that somebody is not able to join, can you please let me know? So then I have to hop on and off of this share screen. So, at the Sign Association of Canada, you are really a member of a multidimensional association. So you are a member of your local region or chapter, and you're also a member of the Sign Association of Canada, so the national umbrella head. And if you're a Class 1 member, so if you're a sign a manufacturer, you're also a member of the International Sign Association. And with that, there are a lot of different benefits that come with it. And I will just look at a few that are of relevance right now. So one thing I wanted to highlight is the ISA's business resources that they have. So they have the Business Continuity Resource Center that they update really on a daily basis, multiple times a day. And so right now, of what is of relevance, and you can find it really easily, signs.org/BCRC. And one of the latest things, pieces of information that they're adding there is about reviving your business. So these are articles, suggestions, recommendations, updates on what to do in this kind of revival phase that we are entering. Then Sign Association of Canada also has a COVID-19 page. I think I should change it also to business resources, sounds much better. But we are also right now have updated with information on what does reopening of the economy mean. And so there are updates from BDC, Government of Canada site, and of course there are also links to each of the provinces, because this recovery phase is quite different in depending on where you are in Canada. Right now is also a good time, if you're working from home, a good time to brush up on learning. It's maybe perhaps not even for yourself, but it's also something that is really relevant for your employees as well. And so whether you're new to the industry or you're a veteran, there is a library of more than 73 different online courses that, are the courses, the price starts at $25, so very reasonably priced and really convenient, and you get a badge after you finish that course. Also, I keep on reminding, but we are social. So we have different ways of sharing news with our members. And so social media right now is a very convenient way of doing it. So, pick your poison, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Also, so that is for ISA, that is for the Sign Association of Canada. That's for the regional chapters and regions. So OSA, Alberta Sign Association, AKI, as well as the Young Professionals Network. So if you are a young professional, that could be a really good medium to, I would strongly recommend following them, because they are all of these organizations and associations and networks keep updating the pages with latest news and resources. And newsletters. So Sign Association of Canada has a monthly newsletter that we send out in addition to webinar updates. And we also, ISA right now, with the COVID-19, has been sending out their daily industry digest on a daily basis. So if you're not getting a newsletter, do connect with us. So Tina Kendrick, she is the manager of Sign Association of Canada's manager of membership and communications. So she is also there. So if you scroll through, Tina is there on one of the windows. I can't see you, Tina, right now, but you can connect with her through sacmembership@signs.org, and then she can help you register for whichever newsletter that is applicable to you or you're interested in that you are not receiving. So really, that is the update on the tools and resources that I think right now that you should be aware of. If you're wondering what you're seeing in there in the background, it's Fireside. Since it's a fireside chat, that's our little crackling fire, and maybe you can hear it. Use your imaginations. But the purpose of our call today is really to discuss sign permitting. So, you know, COVID-19 has a tremendous impact on jurisdictions, businesses, and the communities they serve. And right now, as we entered the emergency, I learned about there's emergency management style. So there are like 4 phases. Really, there's preparedness, then there is the response. So the response was when we saw the unprecedented shutdown of all businesses. So only essential services were able to, you know, be open. And right now we're entering, we are entering a recovery phase. There we go, sorry. I just admitted somebody else. And so so what does recovery mean? It is important because when we're talking about it, like, what are we going to discuss today? And so as the provincial governments are considering the steps to ease up the strict business closures and stay-at-home orders, it is important for us right now to start considering what do we need to do now so that we're ready once things start opening up. And there are a myriad of to-dos. So today we're just focusing on the permitting side of things. So sign permits, variances, and also inspections. What do you think we need to do? Ultimately, our objective is to provide, this is a forum, and this is going to be, instead of a formal presentation, we wanted to have an informal discussion with you. We have members from, you know, across the country, members from big sign companies, smaller sign companies, so very different backgrounds. And we do want to hear also your side of things. We do want to hear your questions and really go on from there. To start off the discussion, so again, we have David Atkinson. So I'm pointing just at my window there. We have David Atkinson from 5 Star Permits. We have Svetlana Levant from Permit World and Joey Matvichuk from Permit Solutions. They are here they're going to start off our discussions, and then we want you to hop in with your questions. So does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Okay. So really and maybe let's, Svetlana, let's start with you. And we're gonna go just geographically, you know, what are you noticing right now in terms of municipalities? I mean, you're in Ontario, but I know you have oversight over all of Canada, but focusing predominantly on Ontario, what are you noticing right now? Which ones are open? Yeah.
Thank you, Corinne, and thank you everyone for joining, and welcome. So over the last month, we have noticed in Ontario specifically that most of the municipalities have maintained some level of service. So for the most part, the municipalities are close to public. However, they do issue permits and answer questions via email or by mail. So overall, I would say as the time progresses through this COVID crisis, the municipalities stepped up overall, and at this point, most of them are pretty much back to pre-COVID-19 turnaround time for permitting. A lot of them got creative. So, for example, Holton Hills, where you have to apply in person and pick up a permit, they have initiated a drop-off pickup system. It does cause delays because their files stay in quarantine for 24 hours. However, we have had pretty quick response for permit issuance. City of Toronto is catching up with the permit issuance. They had a quite significant backlog because their staff was not able to work from home for a long time. However, right now they have a better setup. They equip their staff with laptops, a better system in picking up paperwork and reviewing it. So from what we heard this week, they should be pretty much caught up with the permit review and issuance. They have also starting to review the variance applications. They have not done that until this week, but they are in the process of doing that. They have set up online meetings with their internal staff that would allow them to process variances. City of Mississauga have gone electronic for payment acceptance for variances just recently as well, which is in the past, all the permit applications are submitted online and paid online. However, variances, we had to come into the city and pay in person. So at this point, they did create a new way of doing it. It's a little bit cumbersome, but it can be done.
Mhm.
My name's Rob Wilson.
Hey, Rob.
I work with can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So I work with, we work with primarily construction sites. So we're looking at not the City Hall permitting office, but Department of Transportation over at Metro City Hall, right?
Yep.
So we had a permit that was issued for our graphics just prior to, was March 10th, I think, just prior to the shutdown. And so we didn't, and then because of the shutdown, we didn't get to install the project. So now we're in the process of trying to get lane closures, but before we do that, I need to renew the graphics permit. So I'm like, we've sent in our application to renew the graphics permit. But I'm wondering what you think our expectations should be in terms of turnaround, because the Department of Transportation, in my experience, is just unbelievably awful in terms of response time. You have to actually go down there and jump up and down to get any kind of response from that department. It's, in my experience, it's just really terrible.
I do agree with you. Our experience is similar with the transportation department in the City of Toronto.
Right.
You're not very expeditious in
No.
addressing any concerns during regular times.
Yeah.
So obviously in today's situation, there will be some additional delays. My recommendation would be to contact the manager of that department to see if there are any consideration that can be given.
Do you have that person's name and number?
I want to say it's John Zapotny.
I'm sorry?
John Zapotny.
John?
Yeah.
Zapotny.
Yeah, but I would have to look up his contact information for you.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind sending me a quick email
Yes.
with your contact information, I'll be able to provide you with with more detail.
I don't want to take up everybody's time here, but just what's your email address?
Permits?
No, your email address.
Yeah, Permits at permitworld.ca.
Permits, is that with an S?
Yes, please.
Permits at Permit House,
Permit World.
Permits World.
And second permit, no S.
No S on the second permit.
We can share all of the contact information after the session.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
So that was actually a really good question from Rob about expiry of the permits. So for the transportation department, they have different expiry times. However, typically regular sign permits are valid for 6 months. What we have noticed, when our permits are ready to expire and our clients cannot install due to limitations of which services are deemed essential at this point, we would just make a quick call to the inspectors or to the plans examiners and just let them know that there's going to be delay. So what we have found overall so far, we did not have to pay additional fee for the permit renewals, and inspectors were very accommodating for the extension for the permits. However, the transportation department in Toronto is different. Those permits are valid for specific times for the lane closures.
Right.
Therefore, you do need to get in touch with them and speak to them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very, very, very difficult to deal with.
It's unfortunate, and they're notorious for that. Even the staff at the City of Toronto Sign Bylaw Unit has a hard time getting any feedback from them for the permit applications that require their approval. Mm-hmm. One more thing that we noticed or came to our attention yesterday, City of Kitchener are currently waiving permit fees for temporary signs in the City of Kitchener until end of the year. They have implemented that process in order to help local businesses to reopen and advertise. So temporary signs would be banners, inflatable signs. You still do need a permit. However, they felt that that would be a huge benefit to the community and to the business community and help to get everybody back on track. Mm-hmm. Now, Corinne, do you want me to talk about other points as well?
Yeah, well, I wanted to also go to right now Joey and David to see from their perspective. So we focused right now on Ontario and what we're seeing here in Ontario. Let's just move west. Joey, where are you? Oh, there you go. What are you seeing in your neck of the woods?
What we're seeing is a lot of the large municipalities are handling the COVID crisis quite well. I'm not sure if they have the infrastructure in place to start, but whatever the case may be, we're looking primarily Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, places like that. They're doing quite well. It's the smaller municipalities that we're seeing a little bit of problem with, the little tiny towns, because they're closing their whole office. They're having difficulties calling back, getting the right people to call you, etc. But usually we can pin them down. It's taking a little longer, but the good thing is unlike a large municipality, the turnaround times are usually quite quick. So it balances out in the sense that it may take a week to get a hold of somebody that you need to speak with, but then they turn around the permit in a couple days. So really, the crisis has been not that bad. We have seen actually good response from the municipalities. They've been willing to work with us. Like Svetlana said, there's a lot of flexibility now in terms of getting perhaps payments are coming in online, e-transfers, credit card. Instead of having to drop off applications, they're now allowing them to be by email. So that's actually helped speed up the process as well.
Okay, perfect. David, we've reached the West Coast. So what are you noticing happening in BC?
I think for the most part, we're finding most of the cities are handling the transitions quite well. Where we're seeing a real benefit actually is in some of the cities like back east do require you to go in person. pick up permits in person. They have now transitioned to an online process, this has kind of forced them into that situation that they've been avoiding for years. So my hope is that this is going to continue moving forward and that they'll stay with this process. So it just makes it a little bit easier for everybody to get their applications in and out. Inspections are still happening. As far as application timelines, they're pretty much the same as they always have been. Problem cities have always been problem cities, and they will continue to be. So it's just a matter of working through the mess and getting things put through.
So that hasn't miraculously evaporated then?
Unfortunately not, no.
Yeah, no, to your point in terms of there are cities, I know that in Halifax, they connected with us a month ago and saying they had been working for a long time to get online. And now you can apply, do a permit application online just because this COVID-19 forced their hand and sped up those plans. But, you know, something that had been planned for years now, they just finally implemented. So that has worked actually in our industry's favor.
I think it'll prove to be in our favor here eventually.
So yeah, and so I mean, the association's role and our industry's role is then to keep an eye on it and to ensure that it stays that way. So yeah, so that's great to hear. So then the next question. So, I mean, we've discussed a bit about permitting timelines, but I guess, I mean, I also want to see anybody right now in the audience have any specific questions that they wanted to ask right now? Are there any municipalities that you're looking at right now that you're having issues with? Problem children?
They're always problem children.
Yeah. I don't know how you get change, but I mean, transportation department in Toronto, nothing has changed in the 8-10 years I've been dealing with them, and it's I don't know who you appeal to. I mean, how do you lobby to get a more efficient system? Because there seems to be too many steps in the process, and there are multiple departments or individuals involved, and even though they say 7 to 10 business days response time, it's usually 20 to 30 days response time.
Well, our company continuously working with different municipalities, including the transportation department at the City of Toronto, trying to streamline the process. We have met with them on several occasions. It is a big ship. It moves very slowly. So our company, like actually myself personally, I'm on the GR committee, which is Government Relations Committee for Ontario. So on behalf of the Sign Association and separately on behalf of our clients, we do have continuous conversations with them. But unfortunately, it is very slow process. So my only recommendation would be when you do know you have installations planned, do plan ahead. Don't take their time frames as a gospel. Allow for additional time. We were told in the past it takes about 3 weeks to have the permit issued for the road closure. We have gotten them earlier as well. However, as a plan ahead move for yourself and your clients, allow additional time frames.
What I'm afraid of is that there's an avalanche of requests coming down the pipeline, and I have no idea. I mean, I asked the question, how are they prepared to deal with an excess number of applications if the floodgates open after we start to open up here? How are they going to deal with that? That it just extends. It'll probably just extend the time frame with for you to get a permit, because I'm sure they haven't prepared or put any more resources into the system to handle the potential avalanche of requests.
It will definitely extend the review time until everybody's back up and operational at 100%. In addition to that, in the past, construction was controlled in the City of Toronto in a sense where they will not issue multiple permits for the same area. busy street or intersection, because there are only so many crews would be able to operate without completely shutting down the traffic. So we were in a situation with one of our clients where we had to wait in line to get in because that area was occupied. So when the floodgates do open, there will be a lot of possible control of who gets to go first and do the work. And it might be based on whoever is essential or whoever was deemed essential first, maybe on the type of work that's being done. They will have to address all those points.
Mm-hmm. My recommendation though, so I mean, this is COVID-19, but when the day comes when we go back to normal, so on behalf of the Government Relations Committee, yes, we did meet with City of Toronto's Transportation Department, but we also have meetings, you know, Joey and I have gone in to meet with City of Calgary, and we also meet with City of Vancouver. David and I have gone in. When there are issues overall with these timelines, so if something is on paper, you know, 10 business days, but in fact you're noticing that there's a systematic issue, that this is actually 20 days, 30 days, a month, we always recommend to members, and I'm going to say it again, write it down. You have to keep a list. So because then when we give, you know, go and have a meeting with the city, we actually have that data. So it's not saying, you know, it's taking a lot longer, because then the managers is going to say, well, give us specifics, right? Because also sometimes managers up top, they don't know what's going on here. And so that's why it's really important for all of our members to keep that data. So if you're noticing that this is because then we will take that data and we'll go and have a meeting. Because let's say with City, when we had a meeting with the Transportation Department, there was another issue, and we were able to provide them that data and say, what you're saying is not what we are seeing, right? And this is not just one member saying, it's a number of members, companies who are operating here day in and day out, we're seeing it. So, so that's an action item to all of our members. Please document if you don't already, those timings, so that, and then come to us and tell us this is what we're seeing, because then that helps us build a better case.
Especially holds true with the City of Vancouver here, because the signage with a planner in Vancouver is a transition job. They simply start in signage, then they work their way up to their planning positions that they were actually trained for. So staff turnover in Vancouver runs about every 8 months at this point in time. So anytime you're getting a problem or you've got signage permits in that transition time, you've got to stay on top of that. And you've got to be able to, if those timelines are starting to go away, then you've got to be able to have that timeline, that person, that contact to be able to talk to the managers and say, this is the thing happening. You're not calling out the planner, but this is during their transition. They've got to understand that this timeline is getting worse. So it's up to us to actually stay on top of them for this kind of thing.
I have a question for, I'm going to read it out. So it came in through chat. So you can ask your questions through the chat window, or you can, you know, speak up. So I'm just going to read it right now. Okay, I am located in Ottawa and our sign permit office is up and running. However, they have advised us that they will not be issuing permits until the non-essential work ban is lifted. We have a great relationship with the office, so I have confirmation that some of my permit applications have been approved, but I don't have anything tangible in my hands. Do your experts recommend proceeding with the production of the signage, having only the guarantee that permits will be issued? And this is from Paul.
So my recommendation would always be, please do wait for the permit, because things could happen. However, if your customer is comfortable with the confirmation from the city where they promise to issue the permit, then it's really your customer's call if they would authorize production of the sign prior to actual receipt of the permit.
I think it's also important to maybe reach out to the planner and ensure that there were no slight changes or conditions on the permit that are stated on the document, but maybe not communicated to you verbally. So perhaps they, for example, if you're going to be doing some sort of a freestanding sign, you have to make sure that you're a meter away from the property line or something, or, you know, whatever the condition may be outlined on the document, that you, because you don't have the document to review, that you don't go ahead and install the sign and then all of a sudden you realize, oops, we didn't have this before we knew it. So I agree with Svetlana. My thought is you always should have your permit in hand, but given that this is kind of a unique case, I would certainly, if you feel comfortable moving ahead, is that definitely reach out to the municipalities, but I would say specifically the planner who approved it, and just say, are there any conditions that we need to be aware of? Were there any changes that we need to be aware of? Can we proceed as per the drawings that we submitted?
No, that's very good, Joan.
I had asked that specific question actually this past week, and the response I got back was, you are more than welcome to go into production, period. That's as far as they went with it. So it does come down to your client's preference, whether or not he feels comfortable moving forward. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. So having looked at that, so one thing that we were saying that we wanted to come out of the session is, what should sign companies? I mean, again, it's not like there is only one right answer, but based on your experience, vast experience, what should sign companies be thinking of right now to be ready for the eventual reopening? Like, what are some of the elements?
I think one thing to keep in mind is if you're going to be starting out on several jobs when the floodgates open, so to speak, is that prepare your clients ahead of time with be proactive and either employ one of us to do code checks or do one yourself. Make sure you have an idea of what you're proposing is going to be within the guidelines of the bylaws, because once you start and you have so many projects to work on, that probably will help you get through the permit process quicker, and it also may help with the design process. Because if you know that you're going to be proposing a 10 meter pylon sign, and you know that the bylaws only allow for 7, well then this is going to help expedite everything. The design process, the approval process through the clients, and also the approval process through the municipality as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would also try to manage your client's expectations for the prospective delivery and installation dates. Considering the situation across the country with different processes opening at a different speed, you may have a project in Ontario and a project in BC for a national account, for example, and the installation dates would be very different because of the provincial regulations. In addition to that, even though the permit issuance is getting much better and pretty close to pre-COVID times, there's still delays. We're still coming into summer, which is typically takes longer to have the permits reviewed by the city due to the volume of them. So I would recommend for the salespeople to manage the client's expectations, that to have a permit issued within 2 weeks may not be realistic moving forward for the next 6 to 8 months. Variances as well are not reviewed by all cities in a timely manner, or just not reviewed at all. So until it's back to normal again, there could be delays. If a variance in the municipality is reviewed by a council, typically council does not work during July and August. So that adds to further delays. That would be my recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One other item I forgot to add is that also when you do a code check, it also helps you identify if there's multiple permits that need to be granted. So for example, you might need a building permit, and you might need a transportation permit. So again, speaking to the timelines, is you can better manage your client's expectation for permits when you know that, say, a transportation permit's going to take a month, and maybe your permit with the municipality is only going to take 3 weeks. So you have to make sure that you know or have a good understanding of all the timelines associated with all the permits that you need to obtain.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to find in a bit of a transition period here before this onslaught, which I do believe is going to happen here as well. But I think we're going to find that people or sign companies are going to want to kind of get a head start with code checks, of course, but I think they're going to find that even though they feel that they're comfortable with getting that project going, there may not be the payment on the other side or the worry on the other side of whether or not they're going to get paid to actually move forward ahead with the permitting side of it. It would be great if they could get ahead of the game. I think that now is the time to actually start doing that. But we do understand too that there is a financial side to this thing, and you got to make sure that you're going to get what your project is going to allow at the end of the day here too. So.
Mm-hmm. Very great point, David. And there's that, and also having spoken to supplier members, it's also, and members, is just also having the supplies to build that sign. And then for the supplier members to have also those supplies to sell to our members also. So it's kind of this chain reaction. All right. Then, I mean, so we've been talking about like what you should be doing right now when, when thinking about permitting. So being proactive, managing clients' expectations, because that is definitely true. Even if you right now look at what provinces are saying in terms of opening up, it really varies province by province, and it's a moving target. So they will say we are going to start entering phase 1, but what does that phase 1 even mean? And also they're going to be then, looking also at those 2 to 4 weeks, what's going to happen before they can even commit to the next phase or anything. But one thing that we briefly touched on in terms of, do we need to be also thinking right now about installations and inspections? Like, how does that play into our plans?
Well, I would say that it's very important to think about installations and inspections. Again, it boils down to which service is an essential service and for which businesses the sign installations would be permitted. Again, plan ahead, manage clients' expectations. If you do have a permit and you're allowed to proceed with construction and installation, then definitely call for inspections. Most likely it will be a message or email. If there's an email option to request an inspection, it may be a really good way of doing it, because then you have a record of sending out a request. If an inspector is not able to come to site, or there is an issue with distancing, our advice to our clients: always take photographs during your installation. Document the anchors that you used, the number of them, spacing before you put the sign face onto the sign. Take pictures, make notes. If an inspector was not able to come to site, at least you will have our pictorial representation of what has been done.
Mm-hmm. Really good point. I had a conversation today with City of Toronto's Ted Van Vliet, who was then updating us about for the province of Ontario, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, they filed the regulation to ensure that, the permit applications and, variances should be really within regular timelines right now. So it's kind of back to regular business. And that's not only for City of Toronto, that's for all of Ontario, technically. I know that there are some differences in the municipalities and how they follow it, as per Svetlana. But then my question today was, well, what about then, installations? And so as to what Svetlana said, if you have a permit, and right now the installation of the sign, it falls under essential businesses. So then you can go and proceed and call the city and ask for an inspection as well. But I like and I do like Svetlana's recommendation about the documentation, and also when requesting inspections, whenever possible, do it via email so that you have proof of having done that.
Well, there are some gray areas with what's an essential service or essential business, which you have to try to stick handle. In my case, again, dealing with construction, they've opened it up to include site preparation. And I would maintain that installing graphics on a site at the beginning of the project is part of site preparation. But that's not clear, right? From a sign point of view, it's not clear from the definition of what's essential that the province has published either. So, but I have a lot of agreement that, in fact, graphics at the early stage of a development project is part of site preparation. So we'll see.
I think at this point it's important to remember that everybody is going to be hitting the municipalities really hard once everything's starting to open up, and even typical timelines aren't probably going to be able to be followed. So keep a open line of communication with your municipality you're working with, and ask them, ask them what are we looking at here? What are we looking for timelines? What do you consider essential services, etc.? Because I think everybody's going to be kind of in the dark going forward as to what to do next. So I think it's important just make sure that we're all talking to one another.
Yeah. So that means that he who shouts the loudest gets.
Not necessarily. Sometimes the he that shouts the loudest gets put at the bottom of the pile.
Okay.
And the list of essential services also gets expanded with every notification. So every week they're probably going to be a different list. For Ontario, what we have done when COVID crisis have started, permitting was deemed essential service by some municipalities, but not by others. But overall, permitting was deemed essential service. What we have done just to verify that, we called Premier's office and asked the question, and they did clarify that for us. So when in doubt, you may want to consider giving them a quick call, and they do have staff that help us in the past, so perhaps they can assist you as well.
Well, when we did call with regard to essential service, so when we called on behalf of, so I'm specifically right now talking about Ontario. So because it really differs from province to province, we did call also province of Ontario to clarify, but this was on behalf of the sign industry, because sign industry is no one thing. It really then depended. So as you say, there's a lot of gray area, and depends really what the sign company does and what kind of, what do they produce. And so some were part of that essential services supply chain, and then others are not. So always, call ahead if in doubt. At the same time, the Sign Association developed, so this is the International Sign Association, they developed some kind of scripts and affidavits and this was really essential when everything was shut down. So if a sign company did send their employees, there was a prepared letter. They were asking, so the recommendation was that if you are working on behalf of an essential service, they write a letter, and there was a prepared language saying, can you certify that yes, you are essential service and we are doing a job on your behalf. For anybody who wants these templates, they are on ISA's website, and I can also send them. And then there are also, of course, recommendations. There are various letters and recommendations that they have prepared, but the onus is on the owner, because it really depends on what kind of a job you're doing. And there's no blanket, the entire industry is essential or not. All right. Are there, sorry, I'm just looking at messaging because my phone is off, and I'm making sure that everybody's on. Any other questions that you have for our panel of experts that we haven't covered yet? Or panel of experts, do you have any further tips or recommendations for our members and people calling in today to ensure that they're better prepared for when we start reopening?
Well, my kind of final thought is do talk to your clients, do manage their expectations, and help them understand that even when everything reopens and gets back to normal, which could still be probably a month or two, timeframes will not likely be adhered to by municipalities. It's just not humanly possible at this point, with the influx of everybody applying and wanting their permits issued. So patience, patience, patience. That's my parting thought.
I think this is a good reminder to all of us that no matter what, when we go forward, it's always important to manage clients' expectations, even outside this pandemic, because there's been many situations where clients have an unrealistic timeline for permits, and that's just even at the best of times. So I think if we get an opportunity to start a sort of a guideline when we're talking to our clients, is to continue that onward, because it will be beneficial for you and for your client, because this will only prepare them for a more realistic timeline, because it's surprising how many people don't even realize signs need permits, and then they think, well, it takes a week or it takes 2 weeks. So if we establish this sort of protocol from this day going forward, I think it will be beneficial for many, many groups, including your business and your clients.
I think moving forward here too, we've got to relay the message of just some patience. We're in a transition time. We're going to be in a transition time for a few months going forward, and we need to rely on our contacts. We need to rely on our relationships and actually push that forward to make sure that we're getting the service that is expected of us, but also through the industry too. We've got a lot of people that are going to be under a lot of pressure, and I think we need to give them a little bit of a grace period, albeit stay on top of it too, and try and get what we can get moving forward. But I think we really need to exercise some patience here.
Mm-hmm. My personal call to action to all of our members is that you do write down. So if you're seeing something that is out of the norm or even new norm, but if you see some very bad timelines, that you not only write it down, but do let us know. So because part of what the Sign Association does is we do advocate on behalf of our industry, and we do it in each province. We have government relations calls, task force calls once a month, and we discuss all of these things. So believe it or not, we do. So when I ask you, please send us your feedback or send us what you're saying, we do review that. We put that on the agenda and see what can be done. So where there are, one-offs, then we can't always step in. But if we see something that is systematically an issue or a problem, we do go and address then that city on behalf of the association to ensure that they get better business practices. And sometimes, the changes are not overnight, and sometimes it depends, right? So, but if we don't start, then nothing is going to change. So without any questions, does anybody have any further questions? I don't see anything in the chat box. I will say a few more comments, but thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Joey, and thank you very much, Svetlana, for making yourself available today and chatting with us. As mentioned, we will share their contact information after the session, as well as later on the recording of this presentation. And so if you have any, questions that you want to personally address to them, please do send them along. Oh, my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully you can hear me. And again, this is a discussion, it's evolving. And so my parting words for you today are here. So we have, we're doing these webinar sessions. We're trying to do them on a weekly basis, so our next webinar is going to be actually presented by the Young Professionals Network. And so this is going to be on prospecting, as presented by Lee Murphy, Access Signs in Montreal. And Young Professionals Network is meant for any young sign professionals 35 and under, but this webinar is open to anybody and everybody. And we're really excited to have Lee speak about prospecting. Without further ado, I don't see any questions. Thank you everyone for joining, hopping on the call. I wish you a good rest of the week. It was good to see your faces as we're all isolating, and I believe it is an advantage right now that I can see people from across our beautiful country. And hopefully we'll see you in our future webinars as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we only ones left, you and I, Corinne?
I
I'm
know
here.
everybody's jumping off
Okay.
right now. I will end the meeting right now, but again, thank you so much for being available.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see you.
Bye.